SwitchCase looking at the values and matching case. When it's important to have break. If this break is omitted, it's gonna go down to all the cases. Like for example, case 80, it's gonna do statement for 80. It could be system.out.print 80, but it's gonna do the default too because it was missing break. So it's gonna do default. Default could be invalid cases. Then it's going to do invalid cases as printout. So let's try that. And you can see something like this in your test. And most students make it wrong because they forget about the break. Only some that have it correct. Okay, so make sure you understand this. So let's start with, I'm gonna put the switch in here. Like I'm gonna show you exact like this. Where it says statement, I'm gonna say, okay, system.out.print 100, right? Now, another thing that is different than if-else is this is not an expression. It's the values, right? So it's not Boolean too. Not true or false. So like say for example, value mean like the number is int, right? So I'm going to prompt the user, initialize your values to 0, right? I'm going to prompt the user to enter. So we're going to use the dialog for, let me just use the JavaFX, right? Dialog. We're going to need to import that in. Import JavaFX dot application dot application, and then in that case this has to be what start overwrite stage. We just want to create a dialog here, right? Primary stage, and we need to import stage. Now you may notice that there's an error on the import statement in Eclipse because the prompt is coming from Java build path here. So to fix this, you can make it just want to make it to see access rules here, right? And you need to put the pattern for JavaFX accessible and JavaFX slash. Click OK. Apply that. Alright, so it's gone, right? We need to Alright, so we extend application. Now, I can prompt the user with a dialog, right? So let's use the what type of dialog to put the values. Text input dialog, right? Input dialog equals to new text input dialog. So we need to import that, right? It's under scene control text input dialog. So now the value input dialog dot show and wait, right? You can set the contents too, right? Input dialog dot set content text to enter a number, right? Now show and wait, pretty much just returning the optional string. Let's do, if you do integer, right? This is an integer, correct? So let's try integer. Optional integer value. Because show and wait will return optional, then we import the optional in. So it will not take integer, right? Because this has to be string for show and wait, like text input. Then we can just do parse, right? Integer does parse to convert string to integer. Then this has to be string now, right? Or we can leave it as in, but just declare string like input, and we're going to parse this. This is just constructing, right? Oh, happen to be the same name. That's correct. All right, because this is an instant already, right? Now we need to have string, right? So which is when we do input.get, right? So input.get this is an optional. Need to cast this, right? Can we cast this back to string and entered value. Right, then we have input.get. Now we can start to use the entered value and parse this to integers, right? Integer dot parse int. Alright, so that's how we prompt the user with JavaFX dialog. Now we get to the SwitchCase. Whatever the value is, this is an integer. So switch, right? Case 100. We can say print system.out.print 100. Case 80 80, we're going to do print the values 80. Now the part that we try to test is we're not going to have breaks here, right, to see what happens. And test defaults, we're going to say like invalid. Okay, valid. So now it's like if else, but the part here has to be exact values. For if else, has to be expressions to compare and get true or false, but it's not. Right. And default just like an else case scenarios here, right? Okay, so now we want to run this, but this is JavaFX. We probably need to include what? Static void, right? Main string. Now you may notice that when you run on terminal, VI, or Unix, or CMD, you don't need this method. You just do start, right? But when you run with Eclipse pretty much want you to do this, launch like that. Then you can actually run the Java application. See that? Otherwise I cannot run it. So that's the reason why I want to show you with Eclipse JavaFX. Enter a number 100. Okay, so it's print 100, right? Now, because it's break, so that's why it's going to, whenever it's match, case 1 has print and exit the switch. Done, right? Now let's test when it's 80 then. So I want you to look at 80. It's going to print 80. See? And there's no break. It's going to do all the cases. It's going to print invalid value too. When you want it to match all the cases, then you don't need a break, right, to do more than one. Which is, if you compare to if you do match if, you never do else. But this one is still doing it, right? Even you match it, do all the cases, right? That does match. Let's see if we add case 70. Alright. I'm going to do 80 again, right? 80. So let's go do all the cases again. So that's why this is a tricky part when you don't have break. Even it's case 80, it did print 80, and still do print another one. Even it's not 70. So that's why we have to be very careful when you don't have breaks, right? So it's going to print all the cases below it, even it doesn't match. So if I do again 50, it's going to do the invalid because that's the last one. To fix this issue, pretty much you just need to put the break statements, right? And for the default, you don't really need it because it's going to break out for the rest anyway. And default is pretty much just the last case. Now if I do 80, it's going to just print 80. Alright, so be careful on this. And you see on that